Hi class, in this video we're going to be subtracting numbers with decimals. So here's an example we can go over. Calculate 0.98 minus 0.55. Our first step is to line these numbers up in a column, but make sure you line up where the decimal places are, so they're right on top of each other. Then our first step is to just draw the decimal place value in advance, just so that we don't forget it. The next step is to simply subtract from top to bottom. So 8 minus 5 is going to be 3, and 9 minus 5 is going to be 4. We have the decimal place value here. 0 minus 0 is 0. So our final answer would be 0.43. Not too bad, right? Okay, our next example is calculate 5.6 minus 4.81. So we place these into a column. We want to make sure we align these decimals, okay? But before I do that, notice I have some empty space here right after the 6. I want to add a 0 here. These are called place value holders. Basically, 5.6 is still the same as 5.60. The only reason I add the 0 is so that I have a better visualization when I subtract from top to bottom. Our next step is to, once we line up the decimals, simply make sure we place the decimal here in advance so you don't forget it. Now we simply subtract from top to bottom. But there's a tricky part about this one. 0 minus 1. 0 take away 1. You can't really do that, can you? Because if you have 0 of something, you take away 1, you'd be getting into something called the negatives, which we're going to explore later in our integers unit. So to do this one, we simply have to borrow. So notice from this 6 here, I'm going to borrow a 1 from this 6 and turn this into a 5. But if I borrow 1 from this 6 and turn it into a 5, that's actually considered a 10. So this is now a 10. So it'd be 10 minus 1, which makes 9. Now I have 5 minus h, which I, once again, can't do, so I have to borrow from the 5 to make it a 4. But if I borrow from the 5 to make it a 4, I'm actually borrowing a 10 because I go to the decimal place value right afterwards to the right. So this is now 15. So now you have 15 minus 8, which is actually 7. Now I have 4 minus 4, which would be 0. So my final answer is 0.79. And now let's go over our last example. Calculate 6 minus 2.71. So our first step, once again, is to draw these as a column. And now I simply want to place in my place value holders. But wait, there is no decimal place here for the 6. So we have to draw it in ourselves. So once we draw in the decimal place value ourselves, all right, I simply add the zeros as place value holders. Notice that 6 is technically the same as 6.00, but this just gives us a better visualization. Now that I have aligned the decimals, I want to put the decimal point value right here in advance so that I don't forget it. Now I do our subtraction. 0 minus 1, can't do that, so I have to look to the next line, and I try to borrow from that. But there's a 0 here, I can't borrow from that. So I have to look to the next line, which is a 6. I borrow from the 6, that becomes a 5 now. Now this becomes a 10. Now I'm simply going to borrow from the 10 and turn this into a 9. But now that means the next line over will be a 10. So now 10 minus 1 is going to be 9. 9 minus 7 is going to be 2. And 5 minus 2 is going to be 3. So my final answer will be 3.29.